Hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Monet and you are watching Life is Monet. February was a very prolific reading month. I'm afraid of how many books I've read this month. I haven't looked. I have my spreadsheet, my reading spreadsheet tracker on my computer next to me, and I have not counted how many books I read in February to review in this video. But I know that it is a lot. However, the TBR that I created for this month using my prompt jar kind of got a bit dismantled there because I was reading so many books for school, for research, mood reading, and like just separate projects that I wanted to do, and also just things that like I was very interested in, and my TBR just kept getting like pushed to the side. I did read a couple of them, but I have not read all of them. And so the February TBR books that aren't mentioned in this video, that means that I haven't read them, they will be in the March wrap up because I will be rolling them over to the month of March. So let's get started. I am using my own personal tracker for the books that I read because I have separate projects that I have going on, and I'm not good with updating Goodreads all the time, and sometimes I don't leave ratings on Goodreads, so I know that it's hard to track how I am rating books. But if you watch my videos and you watch my book reviews, it is probably because you like the way that I dive into books and I review them and talk about them. And sometimes I feel like when a book is 3 stars or 4 stars or even 2 stars for a reason, I don't necessarily want to leave that on Goodreads because, one, I don't need it for a tracker because I have my own separate tracker, and for two, I don't always write out reviews. I'm not really a blogger. I'm a vlogger. I'm a video girl, and I don't like to put that out there because I know that there are people who follow my Goodreads, and if I feel like I need to explain why I rated a book a certain way and I don't feel like writing it out, then I don't necessarily leave a review on Goodreads. I need to get better about writing reviews, but since I am not, I don't always rate books, but I do rate them like on my own computer so that you guys know that as well. However, to get my full thoughts on a book, the best way to do that is through my videos because I do explain what I thought about the books and what I liked and what I didn't like. I'm a little bit away from Goodreads this year. I just wanted to give that to you guys as an update. Also, second update is that I am in the middle of creating a Patreon. I don't know exactly what it's going to consist of. I'm still working on the kinks in the background, but you guys will have that coming if you're interested in joining a Patreon and getting to know me. To get started, there was a video I posted early in February, and it was a vlog of me reading Black books by Black authors for Black representation. And in that vlog, I go into deep detail about the books and what I thought about them. So if you want more than the summary I'm about to give right now, definitely go check it out. First book that I read in that video was Charming as a Verb. I really enjoyed it. We're following this first generation Haitian American boy who goes to this prep academy, and he is feeling the pressure to get into a certain college that his father really wants him to go to. And our main character is always like at this crossroads or intersection for different aspects of his life. And I don't want to say that he does a heavy amount of code switching because I feel like code switching is different when you are an immigrant than when you are just an African American that has been here for generations. It's a little bit different because we can be ourselves at home and we can be ourselves with our personal community, but for Black people that have been here for a while, code switching normally just means for school and work. But I feel like for immigrants, it's very different because the expectations that you are held to at home is different from the expectations that you're held to at school. And then you also have to do a heavy amount of code switching when you are an immigrant to make yourself seem more assimilated into American culture. And I feel like it's even harder when you're a Black immigrant from another predominantly African country. It just makes it even harder. So I don't want to say that he does a heavy amount of code switching, but he is a different person in different areas of his life, and he's done it so often and for so long that he is no longer authentic. He has lost the realest, truest version of himself. He is just used to portraying whatever it is he needs to portray in that moment. And so when he goes to do his college interview, he kind of screws it up because he talks about all of the standard status quo things that you think college counselors want to hear, admissions counselor wants to hear. And when she asks him a question about himself and what it is that he wants and like why he wants the things that he wants, he's very stumped because he's like, why does that matter? As he tries to maneuver this, he gets himself into some pretty crappy situations. There is a romance in this book, but I have to say that like I really enjoyed the depiction of this character and the things that he had to battle between. I think that when you have a great charisma about you, you have the gift of gab, and you can talk anyone into circles. You kind of just get used to doing that. It becomes kind of like this default thing, and he's been in autopilot for so long, it's really hard for him to come out of it. So I really did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. It was a full, complete story. It was longer than I expected it to be. Like, I thought it was going to be short and fun, but it was definitely a pretty well thought out, well written book. Then I read 7 Days in June for Chanel's book club, and if she had that live show up, I will put the link in the description box so you guys can go hear my full in-depth feelings about this book. We have 2 characters who used to be together when they were in high school. They had a rocky and reclusive relationship with one another. They both did drugs for one reason or another. There is a chronic migraine happening with our female main character, and these 2 reconnect in their adult life for 7 days in June, and you see them try to fix their relationship and see if they can make it work in their adult life. I want to say that I enjoyed the book completely. I mean, just start there. However, the book was really marketed as like this Black love, Black romance. It was really marketed as like a book that depicted Black love, and I think that the book covers a lot of heavy and important topics. And I think that having 2 Black characters diversifies the experience and adds more nuance to the narrative when you have someone who is dealing with chronic migraines or chronic pain, and they are prescribed stronger narcotics and painkillers, but there's a line between using it because you know you need it because of the pain that you're in, and also abusing it. Even people who are in pain can still abuse their pills. And so the author did a really good job exploring all of these things in the book and changing the narrative of what you think of and what you see when you think someone is abusing their medication. However, calling this the pinnacle of Black love, I truly question. While I did understand the characters in the book, while it was very fleshed out, while I really enjoyed reading 2 Black main characters, I cannot say that I fully related. I don't know that we should be calling this the best depiction of a Black romance, because I don't even think that it's really a romance. And I would also caution calling this a Black romance, because the things that signifies about what it means to be Black and in love, I don't know if I want to push that narrative. I don't know if I support that, I'm going to be honest with you. Then I read Amari and the Night Brothers. Also really cute, really enjoyed this one. I am so glad that I ended up buying another copy for my friend's daughter. She has read it and loved it, and we are both looking forward to the sequel that's gonna come out. We follow a little girl named Amari. Her brother has gone missing. People just assume the worst about her brother because he is a Black boy, but she knows that something else has happened to him. And so one day she gets this invitation to come to this magic academy that her brother was involved with before he went missing. And so she goes, and she is at this school learning all these different things about magic, and she is also trying to figure out what happened to her brother. The next book I tried to read in this vlog was Required Reading for the Disenfranchised Freshman. I DNF'd it and I returned it. I did not like it at all. We have this young girl. She is from a predominantly Black neighborhood. She went to a predominantly Black school, and she did really good when she was in school, and now it's time for her to go to college. And she wants to go to the local HBCU, but her mom pretty much tells her no. If she wants to really be successful in life and have a good job and a good career, she needs to go to a PWI. At her first day on campus, the statue of the first Black president of the school is defaced, and she has to become a social justice warrior to defend and get justice for the defacing of this statue, because everybody at the school thinks that it's a joke and she is being over dramatic. And I'm gonna end my review there. I have nothing nice to say. The next two books that I read, I loved, instant favorites. I will probably always be talking about them on my channel. I'm definitely going to be buying copies and giving it to all the youths in my life that I know. And so the first one is going to be from the Desk of Zoe Washington. We follow a 12-year-old girl named Zoe, and she has a pretty normal life. Her mom and stepdad have a pretty balanced marriage. She loves to bake. She wants to be a chef when she grows up. And the only really abnormality in her life is the fact that her biological father is in prison, and no one ever talks about him. She doesn't know anything about him. She's never met him. But one day she gets a letter in the mail from him, and she reads it, and he sounds like a very nice man. And she is like confused because she just assumed the worst, because anytime she talks about him or brings him up, her mother just paints him in this really ugly light. And so she starts to have secret correspondences with him, and she is trying to figure out why a man who claims to be innocent and is extremely nice and intelligent to her would go to jail for a murder. And so you just follow her on that journey. It is so wholesome. I loved it so much. The second book is A Soft Place to Land. We have this character named Joy, and her parents have had financial hardships. The father has lost his job, and to stay afloat, they have to sell their house. And she's very upset about that because this is the house that she has lived in all her life. And she moves into this apartment complex, or like apartment building, and she starts to make new friends, and they hang out in this little hideout in the building. And one day on the wall, she sees that someone wrote a message basically just expressing that they were depressed and going through a hard time, and she is determined to help them. And so they start to have a little correspondence on the wall in this apartment building, and she immediately starts to forget the things that are troubling her and plaguing her personal life for the sake of helping someone else who seems to be in more dire need than she is. This author is now an auto-buy author for me, because both books I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Even for a YA, I really loved it. I think actually they're both middle grade, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely love those books. Then I read House of Earth and Blood. This was a reread for me. I enjoyed it as much as I did the first time around. I felt the same way. Like, all of the complaints that I had the first time I read it are still the same complaints that I had the second time I read it, but overall, I did enjoy it. And I reread it in preparation for book 2, which is House of Sky and Breath, and I did read that when it came out, and I gave it 1 star. That book was a heaping pile of trash. I cannot believe that Sarah J. Maas played in my face like that. That book was a joke. It was really a joke. We waited 2 years for her to fuck around. That's all she did in that book, was fuck around. We meet back up with Bryce, and there are still things that seems to be unresolved from the deaths of people that died in the first book. And she seems to be trying to pull a plot out of her ass, and she just barely managed to do it. And the plot that she pulled out of thin air had zero connections really to Bryce and Hunt. And her trying her hardest to like connect Bryce and Hunt to like this plot, it was a failure. We spent the entire book with them just talking and interacting with each other, sniding, snarky comments, mild arguments here and there. No progress is being made. Everybody either wants to kiss Bryce's ass or be literally up her ass. Everybody's obsessed with Bryce. She's the best thing since sliced bread, the only woman for all the men in this book. Even though Bryce was cocky in the first book, in this one, she's just extremely cocky, overconfident, overly sarcastic, very annoying, and she wasted 800 pages of my time where nothing was happening. And at the very end, she did some pretty epic stuff, but it does not happen until like the last 2 pages. The book is 803 pages. For 797 pages, all she's doing is playing in your face. And then at the very end, she wants to do this epic thing to make the readers want to grab the next book. I put A Court of Silver Flames on my worst of 2021. I thought that that book was bad. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was a waste of time. And I did not think that she was going to write a book worse than that. But she managed to. So Miss Sarah J. Maas will be back for the second time in a row on my worst of the year, because I assure you, House of Sky and Breath, it will be hard to beat that book. Like, it's probably coming in at the number 1 or number 2 top spot. And it is only February. I read it in February. And like, she now has taken the #1 spot, because I mean, I don't know what could be worse than that. The next book that I read was The Pillar of the Earth, and I read this as a buddy read, and we both had a really fun time. This is like a 900 something page historical fiction about monks who want to build a cathedral. That's it. And you just follow them over the course of like maybe 20 years, 30 years, as they keep trying to build this cathedral, and they have a lot of setbacks. But you know what? This book was entertaining as hell. For the time period that we're in and what's happening in this historical setting, the author has managed to really grasp the vicious, savage brutalities of early England and France civilization. There is a lot of wars that are happening, killings, murders that are happening. They are burning down entire villages to the ground. The monks are messy and vicious, and they gossip, and they're vindictive, and like, it was really good. I cannot wait to continue with book 2. I blew through those 950 pages. I would never have expected that book to be as entertaining as it was. The next book that I read was The Soulmate Equation. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. There was nothing inherently wrong with the book. It was very stock romance, like very cardboard cutout romance. We are following 2 characters. I can't remember the name of the characters in this book, so I'm sorry. But the male love interest has created this algorithm that will pair people with their soulmates based off genetics and DNA. And I don't understand how the science or anything works behind that, but our female love interest ends up taking it just because her friend kind of eggs her on to do it, and she ends up getting a like 99% match with the CEO and the creator of this algorithm. And they're getting ready to launch their company, and they decide that it would be good publicity for them to at least attempt, not to fake date, but to explore their connection to see if the algorithm really works, because a score that high is extremely hard to come by. They are essentially nearly perfect matches for each other, perfect soulmates for each other. And so even though she's very reluctant, she decides to try and do it. Yeah, I read it. It happened. It was a moment. I definitely enjoyed The Unhoneymooners way better. And I was almost a little disappointed that the same person who wrote The Unhoneymooners wrote The Soulmate Equation, because it was so flat. The next book that I read was My Dark Vanessa. This was a book I read as a buddy read with Mina from Mina Reads. And we were both utterly disgusted. I mean, stomach churningly disgusted. I had read all of the trigger warnings for this book going into it. I watched reviews for this book going into it. And so even just reading the synopsis, you know what the book is going to be about. And so you brace yourself. But when you watch reviews of people literally saying that like they're disgusted and like their skin is crawling, it's like, okay, this is a disgusting book. People have been, you know what I'm saying, extremely uncomfortable reading it. Like, you know, going into it. And even being fully prepared for what we were going to find, both me and Mina still could not stomach some of the stuff that was happening in this book. Even being fully aware of what was going to be in the book, I still couldn't stomach it. It was, oh my God. In this book, we are following a character who has a very inappropriate and sexual relationship with her high school teacher. There's 2 timelines, one when she's like 15 and the other one, I think she's 32 or 33. And so you follow her in the past as they start to embark on this Lolita situation. And you watch him groom her and brainwash her and shape her mind in a way that she views their relationship as something that she needs to have and she will do anything to keep. And then in the present future, there's other victims of his that are coming out, part of the Me Too movement, and they're trying to get her to come forward, because a lot of the survivors who are speaking out about him, they are being slaughtered in the media, they are being attacked, they're being called liars, and she is the person that could really back this claim and make sure that he faces justice. So many years later, she still has not come to terms with understanding what their relationship was and what he did to her. And so there's a battle between whether or not she's actually going to speak up. But the ending just kind of left so many things like open and like uncomfortable. I thought that it could have had a better ending to the book because it ends abruptly but like in the wrong spot, and I am unsure what the future will look like for our main character. There was not a moment in the book where I really felt like there was a heavy breakthrough. I don't know if she's gonna heal. I don't know if she is going to come to terms with what happened. I don't know if she'll get over it. I don't know if she'll start to live a more happy, healthy life. You follow her on this journey, you get to understand her and what happened to her, and then the book ends. It ends. And it's not a feeling that you want to feel after reading such a disturbing book. The next book that I read was The Henna Artist. I read this as a buddy read with Jashana, and I liked so many things about this book. We have a woman, her name is Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is in this rather abusive relationship with her husband, and she has a certain ranking in the Indian caste system and in Indian society, and she runs away from her husband and pretty much forsakes her family. And so she does henna for high class women, and she is in the middle of trying to like buy her own house and get her family to come up and live with her so she can take care of them. And one day her ex-husband shows up with her little sister, and she had no idea she even had a little sister. Her parents has decided not to ever speak to her again, so they never respond to any of her messages or anytime she tries to reach out to them. So she had no idea that when she left, her mother was pregnant. So now her ex-husband is here, and he's threatening things and blackmailing her, and she now has this sister, and she has no idea what to do with her. And she's also trying to balance a really delicate place within this society that she has going on. The writing was really good. The authenticity of the culture I really enjoyed. The historical setting was really good. I even enjoyed the plot. What I did not like about this book was Lakshmi. I did not like her as a main character. A self has never lied like her self has lied to her. Her level of self-deniability, I think literally she has a phobia of addressing situations, handling things, taking responsibility, taking accountability. She lies to herself. She is in a deep state of denial, and she is the cause of her own problems. And it's very frustrating to follow her, and stuff is happening around her, and she's choosing to ignore it. But the writer is telling the reader, this is happening. And the reader knows, like, stuff is happening in the background. Like, girl, your water's boiling. You might want to go check on it. The smoke alarm's going off. Your kitchen is smoking. There might be a fire in your kitchen. And she is still doing her own thing. So it's a very frustrating experience. And her actions blow up in her face throughout the entire book. So her constantly ignoring things and problems getting bigger, situations escalating, things blowing back on her, it continues to happen repeatedly throughout the book, and she fails to learn her lesson. She fails to start addressing things as an adult would be, as an adult who's responsible for a child. And when the book ends, she still has not done that. And so I don't know what to expect going into book 2, because she is extremely frustrating as a main character to follow, and you don't get anybody else's perspective. You only get hers. And I don't know if I have the room in my blood pressure to read book 2 anytime soon. The next couple of books that I read are all nonfictions, and I have a lot to say about them, but I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to film a separate video for all of the nonfictions that I read, because I do want to talk about them. I have a lot to say. I want to recommend them, but I read so many books this month that it's hard to compile into one video. So in that video, I'll be talking about the 1619 Project. I'll be talking about an indigenous people's history in the United States. I'll be talking about 400 Souls. I'll be talking about Jesus and John Wayne. I'll be talking about Red Lip Theology. I'll be talking about Blood and Iron, Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Boy, and Between the World and Me, because I also read all of those in the month of February. So be on the lookout for that. So there's 3 more books that I want to talk about in this video. The first is How Moon Fuertes Fell in Love with the Universe. I had this as an anticipated 5-star read. It was a 5-star prediction for me, and I was not wrong. I really love this book. I it's definitely a favorite. Like, I'm gonna recommend this one a lot. We're following Moon. She has a twin, and her mother has this her mother's Catholic. She's very religious, but she also has a high level of superstition to her, and she thinks of her daughters as like the good luck daughter and like the great, beautiful, poised one, and then like the bad luck daughter. And that is how she sees Moon. And so Moon has to live in the shadow of her twin sister, who is very popular on like this Instagram type app. She has a bunch of like hundreds of thousands of followers, and Moon is the one that has to like take pictures for her, and her mom is the manager for her twin sister. And so the whole family kind of just revolves around her sister, whose name is Star. Moon is catching the brunt of so much abuse from her mother. And so in that aspect, the book ended up being so much more heavy than I thought it was going to be. I did not anticipate the book to be such an emotional roller coaster in the way that it was. Star gets this offer to travel on this tour bus with other really influential influencers, and she decides to go, but the mom decides that Moon has to go with her. And as she's on this tour, she meets another person who society sees him in a very different light as well, and he's also the sibling of an influencer, an extremely popular influencer, and they get off to a very rocky foot, and they try to develop a relationship with one another, but Moon sees herself the way that her mom sees her, the way that people in her life sees her, and she doesn't understand that anyone would really ever truly love her. And he has some things going on in his life, Santiago, and so they have to work through their insecurities with one another. But it's hard to work through your insecurities when the things that make you insecure are still occurring. They're still affecting you. And so you watch them constantly be berated throughout the book. I cannot recommend this book enough. Like, Moon is such an inspirational character to follow, working through a lot of the verbal, emotional, and even physical abuse that she suffers at the hand of her mother. Highly recommend that book. Then I read The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. This is a historical fiction as well. We're following one family over multiple generations as it chronicles their life. It starts literally from like slavery all the way into like the early 2000s, and you see this Black family as they are touched by a lot of the socio-economic disparities that have occurred and like happened to Black families in America. And I thought it was very well written. It was rather long. There are some points of the book where I kind of like, I don't know if I was uninterested, but it's more like a comfort read. I don't recommend that it's a book that you just force yourself to run through. I think that you may get to a point where like you are so comfortable and you enjoy reading it so much that you just run through it. But I would not recommend forcing yourself to read it. If you need to put the book down and like come back to it at a later date, or take your time and pace yourself through reading it, that is how I recommend it, because I think that you would enjoy it more. And then the last book that I read was The Last Quintista. We are following a young girl named Petra, and she is someone who wants to be a storyteller like her abuelita. Her parents are scientists, and something is happening to Earth where it's about to be destroyed by like this comet, and the government has decided to send certain people of professions into space to save the human race. And you open this book where people are protesting in the streets. They're trying to override these compounds of people who actually are getting ready to go into space. And so they know what's waiting for them. It's like their imminent death. And it's really heavy. The book is extremely heavy. And when Petra gets on the spaceship with her parents, she's supposed to go into stasis. But something happens where she's more like in paralysis, where she can't move or talk. But she's very aware and she's very awake. And so something happens on this mission. And some scientists on her actual spaceship decide that they're going to erase the memories of everyone aboard. They're going to leave the original plan, and they're going to restart the human race in a way that they think would be better. And everyone has had their memory wiped except for Petra. She can still remember everything. And so we follow her as she tries to hide the fact that she is aware of what these scientists have chosen to do, how she can save her memory, get other people's memories back, and how she's going to save them from these mad scientists. I enjoyed the plot and the layout, and I love to see such fully realized stories for young readers to read, because I really enjoyed Petra's journey. And even though she's a child, I think that she is extremely relatable, but also very wise and intelligent, very insightful, and just aware of what's going on. And I enjoyed following her story. So those two books, The Last Quintista and How how Moon Fuertes fell in love with the universe. I knew that they were going to be 5-star reads. I was watching the release date for them. I bought them the day they came out. I was extremely excited about them, but I did not expect them to be as heavy as they were. And even then, I still loved them so much. Thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. I know it was rather long. I read a lot of books. Sorry about that. But I will see you guys in my next video.